They never saw this coming. Chosen one, what I am about to reveal will shift everything you thought you knew. You weren't just called, you were chosen. And those who plotted against you, they were so busy weaving lies, setting traps, thinking they were steps ahead, never realizing you had already seen through them. They believed they controlled the game, but the truth, it was never theirs to win. Now, the illusion shatters, the masks fall, and they stand there exposed, watching you, unshaken, unmovable, fully aware of every deception they tried to hide. The power of being chosen is not just in what you know, it's in what they fear. Your very presence disrupts their illusions. Your silence forces them into paranoia. They built their kingdom on manipulation, deception, and control, thinking they had you trapped. But what they never accounted for was the force of truth, the divine light that reveals all. They thought they were untouchable, that they could outmaneuver you with tricks and lies. But deception is the weapon of the weak. The moment their schemes stop working, they have nothing left. And now they are scrambling, grasping for control that was never truly theirs. You are not just another player in their game. You are the game changer. While they were playing checkers, you were mastering the unseen. That's what haunts them the most, the realization that their power was never real. Let them feel it. Let them wrestle with the weight of their own downfall. Let them question every move they ever made, because now, they don't just fear being exposed. They fear you. And now, chosen one, it's time to step fully into your power. You are no longer waiting. You are no longer questioning. And if you are ready to claim what is yours, to walk boldly in your calling, then act now. Drop a 7,777 in the comments. Let them wonder. Let them feel the shift. Because the moment of truth is here. And you were always ahead. Number 1. The illusion of control was theirs. The reality was always yours. They thought they were in control. They thought they had power. But now, the illusion is crumbling, and the truth stands unshaken. Chosen one, you watched as they paraded around, convinced they had outmaneuvered you. They strutted like kings on a throne built of deception, mistaking arrogance for strategy. Every move they made, they believed was calculated. Every step they thought was a stroke of genius. But what they never realized was that long before they made their first move, you had already seen the entire board. They thought they were the architects of this game, but they were only playing in the shadows of a structure they never built. They walked paths they didn't pave. They followed trails they didn't design. While they whispered in corners, believing they were orchestrating a masterpiece, you stood in silence, watching, measuring, waiting. And now the reckoning has come. The truth has hit them like a storm they never saw coming, like a tide that cannot be turned back. They weren't just outplayed, they were never even players to begin with. Their confidence was a mirage, their schemes a house of cards. And as the winds of truth swept through, everything collapsed, leaving them standing in the wreckage of their own delusions. They thought they had the upper hand. But now, the same rope they used to bind others is wrapped around their own hands. The same traps they set have closed in on them. They spent so much time plotting, never realizing they were following a script they didn't write. And you let them believe they were winning because nothing reveals a person's weakness more than the illusion of power. A fool who believes they are untouchable will always expose themselves. They become reckless. They stop thinking. They stop questioning. And in their overconfidence, they reveal everything. The way they move, the way they manipulate, the way they fear being truly seen. But you were always watching. They wanted to control you, pull you into their game, dictate how you moved. They used words like weapons, deception like a shield. But every insult, every calculated silence, every desperate attempt to rattle you, it all fell flat. Because you refused to play. You stood unshaken. You didn't fight for their approval. You didn't react to their bait. You didn't flinch when they tried to shake your foundation. And now they sit in silence, replaying every interaction, every scheme, every lie, wondering, how much did you see? When did you figure it out? The answer? From the very beginning. They assumed you were blind. They assumed you were a pawn in their game. But what they failed to realize was that you were never reacting, you were calculating. You were never playing along, you were observing. And now, as they stand in the ruins of their own making, the weight of the truth is suffocating. They were never in control. They just didn't know it yet. Let them sit with that realization. Let them wrestle with their own foolishness. Let them feel the weight of their miscalculations. Because now the game is over and you were never just a player. You were always the force they never accounted for. Number 2. They thought they were moving in shadows, but you saw through every step. They thought they were untouchable. They moved in the shadows, weaving deception with the confidence of those who believe they can outmaneuver destiny. But what does the word say? For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8 verse 17. The greatest weakness of a liar is not their lie. It is the cracks they leave behind. They believed they had covered their tracks, whispering in dark corners, exchanging glances, speaking in half-truths, thinking they were beyond detection. But deception always leaves fingerprints. The nervous twitch, the forced laugh, the hesitation before a response. They mistook their arrogance for skill, thinking their carefully placed words and calculated silences were enough to keep you in the dark. But they never realized you were watching the entire time. The eyes of the Lord are in every place, keeping watch on the evil and the good. Proverbs 15 verse 3. They thought they were slick, that their deceit was art, that their false confidence could mask the truth. But darkness cannot stand in the presence of light, and the moment truth enters, every shadow must scatter. While they strutted, thinking they controlled the board, they failed to see the trap they set for themselves. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it, and he who rolls a stone will have it roll back on him. Proverbs 26 verse 27. And now the walls are closing in. The false security they once held, gone. The illusion of control, shattered. The moment they realized you were onto them from the very beginning, panic set in. Now they scramble to piece together their broken reality. They replay every moment, every conversation, every scheme, desperate to find the moment they slipped. But it doesn't matter, because the truth is they slipped from the very start. He catches the wise in their own craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are swept away. Job 5 verse 13. They made it too easy, too predictable, too obvious. While they thought they were leading the game, they were unknowingly leaving a trail for you to follow. They weren't playing chess. They weren't orchestrating brilliance. They were simply exposing themselves one misstep at a time. And you simply waited. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for Him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, when they carry out their wicked schemes. Psalm 37 verse 7. You let them walk deeper into their own illusion. Let them become so comfortable in their deception that they never considered you had already seen through it all. And then, reality hit them like a thunderclap. Now paranoia grips them. They hesitate before speaking. They avoid eye contact. They question everything, because the greatest fear of a deceiver is realizing they have been fully seen. And the worst part? They can't undo it. Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. Galatians 6 verse 7. The moment someone realizes they were never in control is the moment they lose everything. Let them feel it, chosen one. Let them wrestle with the weight of their own downfall. Let them stand in the ruins of their own making. Because in the end, their greatest mistake wasn't the lies they told. It was believing, even for a second, that they could ever hide the truth from you. Number 3. You identified their weaknesses while keeping yours invisible. They thought they had the upper hand. They thought they were in control. But the moment a deceiver believes their own illusion, destruction is inevitable. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16 verse 18. A predator that doesn't know it's being watched is already prey. They thought they were studying you, watching, analyzing, waiting for the moment you would falter. They searched for a crack in your armor, something, anything they could exploit to control the narrative, to make you doubt yourself. But what they failed to realize, you were never the one under the microscope. They were While they schemed, you observed. While they tested your patience, you measured their patterns. Every insult, every calculated silence, every forced display of confidence. They believed they were making progress. But in reality, all they were doing was exposing more of themselves to you. And now, the weight of their own deception is crushing them. When false confidence becomes a deadly weakness, there is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end, it leads to death. Proverbs 14 verse 12. They mistook arrogance for wisdom. They mistook pride for power. They paraded their confidence like armor, believing it made them untouchable, invincible. But what they didn't understand is that false confidence is the deadliest weakness of all. Because the moment someone believes their own lie, they stop questioning. They stop assessing. They stop watching. And when deception meets blindness, the fall is inevitable. They assumed you were blind to their tactics, but it was their own blindness that led to their downfall. You saw through them before they even saw themselves. Their insecurities weren't hidden. You recognized them in their desperate need for control, in the way they projected their own fears onto others, in the way they masked their uncertainty with false arrogance. They thought they were studying you, but in reality, they were exposing themselves, bit by bit, piece by piece, and they never even realized it. And now it's sinking in. The moment of reckoning has arrived. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. 1 Samuel 16 verse 7. They feel it now, the nakedness of being fully seen, the vulnerability of knowing that every trick, every scheme, every facade was never as convincing as they thought. They spent so much time trying to manipulate, so much energy crafting an illusion of superiority, only to realize they were the ones being read like an open book. They wanted to break you, but instead, they cracked. They wanted to control you, but now, they are the ones spiraling. The thought consumes them. How much did you see? When did you figure it out? How deep does your awareness truly run? And the worst part? They will never truly know. The wicked flee when no one pursues, but the righteous are bold as a lion. Proverbs 28 verse 1. Because while they wasted their time and energy trying to dismantle you, you remained untouchable, calm, grounded, in complete control. Now, they stand in the wreckage of their own making, haunted by a single truth. They were never in control. They just didn't know it yet. Let them feel it, chosen one. Let them wrestle with the weight of their own foolishness. Because in the end, their greatest mistake wasn't the lies they told. It was believing, even for a second, that they could ever deceive you. Number 4. Their lies were loud, but their actions screamed the truth. For there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Luke 8 verse 17. They thought they could talk their way into power. They believed that with enough words, spun, twisted, and coated in false confidence, they could control the narrative, bend reality, and make you doubt what you already knew. But they forgot one thing. Truth is not found in words. It is revealed in what is left unsaid. While they were busy performing, rehearsing their deception, carefully choosing every phrase, you were watching. Not their lips, not their crafted illusions, but their silence. Because deception may sound convincing, but the body cannot lie. The tongue of the righteous is choice silver, but the heart of the wicked is of little value. Proverbs 10 verse 20. They thought they could mask the truth with smooth speech, but their nervous fidgeting, their forced smiles, their unnatural pauses, those were the real confessions. They underestimated you. They assumed if they spoke with enough confidence, you would believe them. But what they didn't know was that you were never deceived. You were always reading between the lines. The wise store up knowledge, but the mouth of a fool invites ruin. Proverbs 10 verse 14. Every moment they thought they were in control, they were actually exposing themselves. They mistook their own arrogance for mastery, believing they were the architects of perception. But you never needed their words to understand the truth. You saw it in the subtle cracks they tried to seal, in the hesitation before a response, in the shifting of their gaze when pressed too close to reality. And now the realization grips them. The truth they thought they had buried has risen to the surface, louder than any lie they ever told. The wicked are overthrown and are no more, but the house of the righteous stands firm. Proverbs 12 verse 7. They feel it, the weight of exposure, the sinking awareness that they never really had the upper hand, because you were always watching. Now they question every move they made, every false word they uttered, every scheme they set in motion. They wonder, how much did you see? How long have you known? And the answer? Since the beginning. The Lord detests lying lips, but he delights in people who are trustworthy. Proverbs 12 verse 22. What they once considered their strength, their ability to manipulate, to control, to weave illusions, was actually their greatest weakness. Because the entire time they were performing, they never realized. You weren't reacting. You weren't engaging. You were observing. And now, as they sit with the weight of their own downfall, they finally understand. The game was never in their hands. It was always in the truth, and the truth belongs to God. Number 5, you used silence as a weapon and it dismantled their game. A lion does not waste its roar on sheep. It moves with purpose, speaks only when necessary, and dominates without chaos. You were never meant to fight battles with noise. Your power was never in reacting, never in explaining, never in proving yourself to those who were unworthy of your energy. Your silence was not weakness. It was strategy. It was the checkmate they never expected. They came at you like predators, expecting you to fight, to defend, to lash out. They baited you, poked at you, did everything in their power to pull you into their game. But instead of giving them what they wanted, you gave them what they feared the most. Stillness. You let your silence speak for you. And that silence? It became the thing that destroyed them. The moment everything changed, they believed their words had power. They thought their manipulation could break you, that their twisted narratives could shake your foundation. They wanted to see you flinch, lose control, prove to them that their schemes were working. But when they were met with nothing, no reaction, no retaliation, no validation, the weight of their own words came crashing down on them. Because now they had to sit with themselves, with their own thoughts, with their own insecurities, with the truth they tried so hard to escape. And that is where the unraveling began. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14 verse 14. Silence is never empty. It forces people to fill the space with their own chaos. And fill it they did. They spiraled. They second-guessed every move. They ran in circles trying to decipher what you knew, what you saw, what you were thinking. And with every moment you remained unshaken, their panic grew. Every push that got no response, their confidence cracked. Every insult that met stillness, their ego crumbled. They thought they were in control, but control was never in their hands. It was always in yours. The collapse of their illusion. Be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James 1 verse 19. Without your participation, their game fell apart. Without your energy, their illusion of power lost all meaning. They needed your reaction to feel powerful. They needed your attention to feel in control. They needed you to fight back so they could convince themselves they were winning. But you refused to play. You let them run. You let them perform. You let them exhaust themselves in their own schemes while you stood still. And now they know. Your silence was never emptiness. It was power. Your stillness was never weakness. It was warfare. And they feel it like a noose around their confidence. They look back at every moment they thought they had you. Every time they thought they had won. Every time they convinced themselves they were leading the game. And the realization sinks in. They were never leading. You were. They thought you were falling into their trap. But all along, you were letting them dig their own grave. Now let them feel it. Let them wrestle with it. Because the silence they once mocked, it is now the very thing that keeps them awake at night. Number 6. Their so-called power moves were just desperate ego tricks. A fool believes power is forcing others to notice them. A true force moves in silence, shifts atmospheres, and commands without demand. They thought they were untouchable, operating in some high-stakes game where every move was a masterpiece. every manipulation a stroke of genius. But what they never saw coming was this. The game they thought they were leading was never real to begin with. Every insult, every carefully placed jab, every moment of calculated silence meant to shake you. These weren't strategies. They were desperate cries for attention. They wanted you to react. They needed you to validate their illusion of power, to prove that their little schemes held weight. They wanted you to engage, to acknowledge them, to play along. But you never did, because true power never begs to be seen. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? Psalm 27 verse 1. The unmasking of a fraud. They believed they were playing chess. But the truth? They were just moving pieces on a board that never mattered. Their so-called power moves? Not acts of dominance, but performances. Flimsy, predictable acts meant to convince both you and themselves that they were in control. But you saw through them from the very beginning. Every move followed the same weak pattern. A fragile ego, desperate to prove itself. A mask of confidence, covering deep-seated fear. A series of forced displays of superiority, disguising an internal void. Pride goes before destruction. A haughty spirit before a fall. Proverbs 16 verse 18. They weren't powerful. They were just afraid. Afraid that without their tricks, their games, their illusions, they were nothing. And now, they are starting to realize it. When the illusion collapses, they mistook your silence for weakness. They assumed your refusal to engage meant you had surrendered control. But the truth? You were never trapped in their game. You were watching it. You let them run in circles, exhausting themselves with their own foolishness. You allowed them to expose their own weaknesses, to unravel under the weight of their own deception. And the harder they tried to prove their power, the more they revealed how little they actually had. Now they feel it, the sinking realization that they were never the masterminds they imagined themselves to be, that everything they did was predictable, transparent, and beneath you. They look back at their desperate attempts to control the narrative, at their so-called victories, and the truth crushes them. It was never power at all. It was just ego screaming for validation. And what stings the most? Not just that they lost, but that they were never really playing to begin with. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness in God's sight. As it is written, He catches the wise in their craftiness. 1 Corinthians 3 verse 19. You didn't just defeat them, you let them destroy themselves. Number 7. They craved validation. You starved them of it. Nothing unravels the insecure more than being ignored by the one they desperately seek to impress. They didn't want you for who you are. They wanted what you could give them. Validation, tension, a sense of power. Every move they made, every insult, every little attempt to outshine you was nothing more than a plea for recognition. They needed you to react, to acknowledge them, to confirm that their presence held weight in your world. But you gave them nothing. No approval, no praise, not even irritation. And that's what destroyed them the most. The power of your silence. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, or you yourself will be just like him. Proverbs 26 verse 4. They thrived on attention. They fed off reactions. Their entire sense of power was built on controlling the emotions of those around them. But when it came to you, they hit a brick wall. Because you refused to play their game. They believed they had power over you, but what they never realized was this. Their entire existence depended on your participation. Without your response, their so-called victories felt hollow. Their manipulations fell flat. Their mind games crumbled under the weight of their own irrelevance. First, they were confused, so they pushed harder, tried new tactics, set more traps, baited you in every way they knew how. But nothing worked. They were used to controlling others through validation, by making people crave their approval, forcing them into a cycle of seeking and submission. But you were different. The moment reality hit them, cease striving and know that I am God. Psalm 46 verse 10. Then it hit them, hard. Without your acknowledgement, they began to shrink. The power they thought they had, it was never real. It only existed as long as you allowed it. And now, as they look back, they are forced to face an uncomfortable truth. How much they needed you to feel important. That sting they feel now. It is the crushing weight of irrelevance. They once believed they were the center of attention, the puppet masters, the ones in control. But now they see it clearly. Their influence was an illusion, and you were the one holding the strings. The true power of a chosen one. The Lord is my strength and my shield. My heart trusts in him, and he helps me. Psalm 28 verse 7. This is what it means to be chosen. When you understand that your validation is a currency, you control who receives it. And when you refuse to give it to those who seek it the most, they crumble. They collapse under the weight of their own insecurity. They spiral into their own emptiness. Let them feel foolish. Let them sit in the void they created for themselves. Because while they spent all their time chasing your approval, you were busy rising beyond them. Number 8. They thought they were unpredictable. You read them like a script. A snake that moves in circles believes it's unpredictable. It coils, it strikes, it slithers with false confidence, convinced that no one can predict its next move. But the hunter watching from above, he sees the pattern every single time. They thought they had you cornered, trapped in a web of their so-called genius tactics. They wanted you scrambling, second-guessing, lost in the chaos they created. They mistook their deception for strategy. They assumed that every move would shock you, shake you, leave you questioning everything. But what they never realized, you had already read them like an open book with missing pages. The trap of their own making. The wise see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 27 verse 12. They thought they were pulling the strings, orchestrating every outcome in their favor. But their actions, they weren't the work of a mastermind. They were the desperate habits of a mind stuck in a loop of fear, ego, and insecurity. And you saw it. You watched it unfold over and over because they were nothing more than prisoners of their own patterns. Every attempt to manipulate, every desperate grasp for control, every so-called power move. It was all painfully obvious. Not because they weren't trying hard enough, but because they never had an original thought in the first place. Why they never stood a chance. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Proverbs 2 verse 6. They thought they were unpredictable. But you were operating on a level they couldn't even comprehend. They were creatures of habit, repeating the same tactics, following the same patterns, playing the same tired game. They convinced themselves they were elusive, unknowable. But you saw through it all. You knew exactly what they would do before they even considered doing it. Their mind games? Exposed. Their manipulation? Transparent. Their lies? So predictable you could finish their sentences before they even spoke. While they believed they were 2 steps ahead, the truth was undeniable. They were walking in circles. The moment reality crushes them, there is no wisdom, no insight, no plan that can succeed against the Lord. Proverbs 21 verse 30. Now the realization hits them like a tidal wave. The illusion shatters. They aren't complex. They aren't powerful. They were just pawns, never understanding the board they thought they were playing on. And now they know. The humiliation, the shame, the weight of realizing that the person they thought they were fooling was actually watching their every move, waiting, anticipating, already ahead. They thought they were playing mind games with you, but in the end, they were only playing themselves. Number 9. Their drama was a trap, but you never took the bait. What happens when a storm rages, but the mountain does not move? They came at you with everything they had. Manipulation, deception, mind games, hoping to shake you. They twisted situations, distorted the truth, pushed every button they could find, all with one purpose: to make you react. Because the moment you reacted, they would feel in control. Did you notice? It was never about the truth. It was never about what was right or just. It was always about control. But you never gave them that satisfaction. You didn't argue. You didn't explain yourself. You didn't defend your truth to people who were committed to misunderstanding you. And that destroyed them. the starvation of chaos. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14 verse 14. Drama thrives on attention. Chaos needs fuel. A fire cannot burn without oxygen. And when you refuse to engage, you starved their tactics until they collapsed under their own weight. They thought they were being clever, but all they did was reveal their own desperation. Because here's the truth. Only weak people need chaos to feel powerful. Only the insecure create confusion to feel in control. And they thought they had you trapped. They thought you would chase after their approval, fight to clear your name, break under the pressure of their accusations. But instead, you stood still, and they spiraled. They tried harder, became louder, more desperate, because they couldn't understand why you weren't playing their game. But why would you? The mirror they never wanted to see. For we can do nothing against the truth, but only for the truth. 2 Corinthians 13 verse 8. You became the mirror that reflected back their own weakness. Every trick they tried, every scheme they pulled, every attempt to control the narrative, it all backfired. Because when someone builds their power on illusion, the moment they are exposed, they crumble. What they thought was a game of power turned into their own public humiliation. They believed they were manipulating the situation, but all they did was expose themselves. Now, they're left wondering, why didn't it work? Why did their usual tactics fail? Why did they feel like they had lost when they were the ones trying to win? Because power built on deception, ego, and insecurity cannot stand against truth. It didn't work because you never needed their validation. You never needed their approval, their acceptance, or their twisted version of reality. You knew the truth, and the truth stood on its own. Now let them feel it. Let them sit in the silence they never expected. Let them wrestle with the weight of their own failure. Because now they see it clearly. Without your energy, they are nothing. Number 10. They played shallow mind games. You operated on a deeper level. A deep mind terrifies the shallow. No matter how hard they try, they will always be out of their depth. They thought they had you figured out. They thought you were just another person to manipulate, another pawn to move in their little game. They used their usual tricks. *** mind games, deception, shallow plays. *** thinking they could control you like they did everyone else. But what they never realized, you weren't even playing the same game. They skimmed the surface. You mastered the depths. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. Proverbs 9 verse 10. While they skimmed the surface, believing their quick moves made them untouchable, you were already operating on an entirely different level. They were obsessed with fooling you, distracting you, trapping you. So much so that they never stopped to wonder, just how much deeper does your understanding go? They never asked themselves, how much did you already know? How many moves ahead were you? How long had you been watching before they even noticed? Now, as the truth sinks in, they see it clearly. They never stood a chance. They thought they were playing chess. But you were mastering an infinite game. Their strategies, basic. Their schemes, predictable. Their arrogance, laughable. Every tactic they thought was clever, every attempt to manipulate, every illusion of control, was nothing more than a desperate attempt to mask their own insecurity. And now they see it for what it really is. You were never trapped. You were dissecting them. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. Proverbs 2 verse 6. You weren't avoiding their tricks. You were dissecting them. Every fake smile, every subtle insult, every attempt to twist the narrative. They thought they were leading the conversation. But you were already 10 steps ahead, watching it all unfold. They tried to box you in, to limit you to their small-minded understanding of power. But how can a shallow mind comprehend the depth of an ocean? They thought they had you trapped, but you were the storm they never saw coming. The hardest pill for them to swallow. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness in God's sight. 1 Corinthians 3 verse 19. Now the reality crushes them. They built up an image of themselves, calculated, strategic, always ahead. They convinced themselves they were untouchable. But now Now they realized that their so-called mastery was nothing more than a collection of repetitive, shallow, and obvious moves. Now, standing in the wreckage of their own failure, they are humbled, exposed, humiliated, because when you place a shallow mind next to true depth, the contrast is undeniable. And now, for the first time, they finally understand. They were never dealing with someone on their level. Now, they have to sit with the truth. Let them sit with that realization. Let them feel the weight of it. Let them drown in their own foolishness. Because at the end of the day, they never understood you. And now, it's too late for them to catch up. Number 11. Now they wonder just how much you knew all along. Nothing haunts a deceiver more than the fear of being truly seen. The moment it dawns on them that you've known everything all along, it hits like a punch they never saw coming. The confidence they once had, gone. The smug sense of control, crushed. Because now they're not just embarrassed. They're terrified. They thought they were clever. Thought they had crafted the perfect mask. Spinning stories, twisting narratives, moving in the shadows like puppeteers. But now they realize they were never hidden. Their tactics, their lies, their subtle manipulations. You saw through it all. And the worst part? You never even had to say a word. Now the paranoia kicks in. They start replaying every conversation, every move, every scheme. What else did you see? How much did you know? When did you figure it out? The questions eat away at them. Because the truth isn't just that you knew. It's that you always knew. They thought they were pulling strings, controlling narratives, setting traps. But now they see the bigger picture. The whole time you were just watching. Silent, patient, completely aware. And that's what terrifies them the most. Because if you knew all along, that means every lie they told, every trick they played, every fake smile they threw your way, it was all worthless. This isn't just about their deception being exposed. It's about the aftermath, the paranoia that creeps in, the self-doubt that takes hold. They start second-guessing everything they've ever said, wondering where they slipped up, where their facade cracked. Their confidence has turned to fear. They're trapped in their own mind, drowning in the realization that the game was never in their hands. And here's the final blow. There's no way out. Because once someone realizes they've been completely seen, there's no way to undo it. No way to rewrite the past. They're left standing in the wreckage of their own lies, knowing that the power they thought they had was never real to begin with. Number 12. While they overanalyzed everything, you moved with instinctive precision. The sharpest mind is not the one that calculates every move. It's the one that simply sees the truth and acts. They thought control came from strategy, from plotting every move, from obsessing over every possible outcome. They thought if they planned enough, schemed enough, overanalyzed enough, they could get ahead. But all that thinking only trapped them in their own confusion. Meanwhile, you didn't need to strategize every little step. You didn't need to waste energy on endless calculations. You moved with instinct, clarity, and purpose, always 2 steps ahead without even trying. And that's what terrifies them. They spent all this time trying to manipulate, trying to twist reality in their favor, trying to force an outcome. But no matter how much they schemed, they couldn't shake you. They couldn't throw you off. Because your strength doesn't come from playing their game. It comes from seeing through it. You weren't tangled in their chaos. You stood outside of it, watching as they tripped over their own delusions. They thought they were playing mental chess, carefully placing their pieces, thinking 10 steps ahead. But what they never understood is that real mastery isn't about obsessing over the board. It's about knowing when the game itself doesn't even matter. You weren't caught up in their web. You weren't distracted by their noise. You simply moved, with purpose, with clarity, with an unshakable sense of direction. And now, they're left staring at the wreckage of their own overthinking. Their so-called genius strategies collapsed under their own weight. Every carefully laid plan, exposed. Every attempt to control you, pointless. Because you were never under their control to begin with. You were always free. You were always ahead. Now they sit in silence, realizing just how foolish they were to believe they ever had the upper hand. They thought they were calculating your every move, but the truth is, they were just reacting to you the whole time. While they scrambled to keep up with their own confusion, you moved with effortless precision. Their mind games weren't sophisticated. Their tricks weren't clever. Their control was never real. Let them feel it. Let them sit with the weight of their failure. Because in the end, it wasn't their schemes that won. It was your clarity. And now, they know. No, you were never just playing along. You were always ahead. And now, as the dust settles, the truth is undeniable. They were never in control. Hit that like button. Subscribe to our channel.